This is a presentation going over inflation in the United States by me, Leo Wyatt, and Jacqueline Guzman. So first off, to understand the complexity that is inflation, we have to first ask ourselves, what is inflation? Inflation is a common occurrence in every government. It can be described as a general and ongoing rise of prices for goods and services. So for example, if there is higher availability for goods, then there will be lower prices. If there is lower availability, then the prices will rise. It is also described as a trend that is directly influenced by government powers. However, in comparison, the United States has a market system which allows for the people to regulate the economy with little to none government interference. The people themselves influence supply and demand based on how they spend, invest, borrow, and lend, along with the amount of money they earn.
If inflation during 2020 rates and causes. Unemployment rates in 2020 rose to the 8.1%. It was the highest since 2011. Because of the rise of COVID cases, there is less people working. Therefore, inflation rates remained low in 2020 due to the lack of distributed money, making U.S. citizens incapable of affording anything above the established prices. Inflation in 2021. The pandemic was put under better control by 2021. Inflation rates by CPI, the Consumer Price Index, have significantly increased from 2020, which had a total average rate of 1.6% to the current average rate of 6.8% in November 2021. Although previous rates have been higher in the 1970s, where there was a jump from 3% to 10% over a course of 3 years, and current inflation rates has shown an increase in only a single year. Measuring rates through PCE also proved to be at a high point of 4.4% compared to the past decade, where measures range from 0.1% to 3.2%. And on the right, you can see the data graph.
Okay, now, what are inflation's economical impacts? So we can see and we can say that higher employability rates normally implies a greater production of goods along with higher amounts of service availability. This contributes to a country's total GDP, which stands for a country's total gross domestic product. However, despite inflation meaning these things, it isn't necessarily positive for an economy. If there is hyperinflation, it threatens the stability of an economy and it runs the risk of markets crashing. And this is what happened when in the 1900s when the Great Depression happened. Because of the pandemic, the United States suffered a Great Recession. Its annual percent change in real GDP after 2020 was at a low of negative 3.5%. It's the lowest since 1946, where the change was at negative 11.6%. Annual GDP over 2.5%, as proven by studies, causes a 0.5% decrease in unemployment rates for every percentage point over 2.5%. Inflation rates increased in 2021, but how does that affect the US's economy? That's the question we're trying to find out. Inflation's impact. By lowering unemployability rates, it only increases inflation. It causes there to be aggregate demand that makes prices fluctuate dramatically, along with causing an increase in wages, which makes the value of money become illegitimate. High inflation rates also results to consumers losing confidence in their country's economy. This, for example, it will cause consumers to stop spending, to stop lending or borrowing or investing. These are all activities that would be put to a halt. The inflation rates increasing in 2021 did help the United States GDP from the lows in 2020, but there will be a negative overall outcome. The more the economy's GDP raises, the higher inflation will rise.
Attempts to control inflation. The Federal Reserve by Congress works to achieve an inflation rate of 2% per year by PCE. The Fed normally uses contractionary money policies to raise interest rates that leads to the reduction of money that banks can lead along with the reduction of money being put into the system. The Fed funds rate is another method where it deals with charging higher interest rates on their loans, causing businesses to borrow less and hire less workers.
In continuation, you can also say how in 2020, the Fed's actions reduced fluidity in the financial systems, which in turn slowed economic growth and demand, putting downward pressure on prices. In current times, due to the worry of a recession, the Fed has had to ramp up its quantitative easing and reduce interest rates. The Fed funds rate increased from 0% to 0.25%. Even without this, after the 2008 financial crisis, the government has put focus into preventing severe recessions by pumping tens of billions of dollars into keeping banks solvent. In conclusion, we can say,
inflation in the United States has had a significant increase,
which is shown by the data that we have studied. The second point we have to conclude is that inflation is projected to continue to increase.
And the third one is the government is working to prevent this increase,
which we have proven by our research. Now, this is the conclusion of our presentation, and here are our citations. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you.